Traveling the Vortex.
We've joined Ashilda as she travels the Earth and arrive at episode number 269. 10,000 hours is all it takes to master any skill. 20,000 and you're the best in the world. Over 100,000, you're the best there's ever been. Guys, we've got a long way to go in this podcast. I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
I'm Glenn.
How are you guys?
Feels like 100,000 hours.
Ouch.
No,
That's why I started cutting them
That's
down.
why you started cutting them down. There's a couple of listeners going, yeah.
Some of those who have gone back and mainlined them all.
I disagree. I think we should be really good at this point.
You think we've at least hit the 10,000 hour mark?
God, I hope not.
Let's see, how many? 259?
269.
Or 69? That's 269 hours. Some of them you have to take times 2 or 3. No.
No,
yet.
not good. Not even close.
Not even there yet.
Maybe 5. So we're somewhere between. Oh, we haven't even mastered a skill yet. Never mind. We got a long way to go. Oh, I slammed that on the table again, didn't I? I'm going to move it over here. Then I'll be looking for my book here in 5 minutes going, where is it?
Where'd it go? Did you guys have a good week?
We've all got new mics now, so it picks everything up, including the crinkling in the bag.
That's
We're
right,
not
it's
allowed
Easter.
to bring. Sorry, no food. Can't bring any food to the table. It picks it up now.
Why would you do that?
Bring food to the table?
Crinkle it in somebody's ear like that.
Just mean.
I was just mocking your chips, the first podcast we ever did.
I'm going to bring out chips in a minute. Didn't stop you from eating them.
I did not eat any. You sat clear across the room on your microphone with your bag of chips next to the fan.
I did. I was a little like Peter in that episode of Family Guy. How are you?
I'm good. Did you guys do anything fun this week?
I did my taxes. Oh, you mean fun? No. I got my taxes figured and filed this week. Well, I did it. I didn't get them done. I did them this weekend.
Good luck with that.
Getting money back from the government, so that's good.
It's always good.
Well, from the federal government, I owe the state.
I think
which is,
everybody
it's
owes
typical.
the state.
I got $78 whole back from the state this year.
Oh, look at you.
He's not married and has no kids.
Which I spent on toys.
Appropriately enough.
Glenn, you're getting money back from the government. What are you going to do next?
I'm going to Disney World.
Are you sure you want to do that?
Yes.
Well, I mean, because it's Disney World. Well, I get it, because I'm chomping at the bit. I am so
There's no
ready
doubt
to
in my
go
mind that I want to go to
Does Glenn want to go to Disney
Well,
World?
It's a silly question. There's no doubt. I'm chomping at the bit to go. But then they announced, we're going to put Avatar Land over here in the Wild Kingdom. Oh, and we're going to do Star Wars Land. It's like, I got to wait now.
But
I can't go now.
We just went 3 years ago, and I'm going back. So, I mean,
He'll go back
I'll
again
go
when
back
they open
again
it.
in 2 years.
Yeah, but would
Actually,
you rather
probably-
just have it all be done? No. What else we do this week?
Let's talk about EmpowerCon
Yeah.
now.
All right.
Why not? Empower Comic Con. Little 2-day event that we had here in Topeka. Kind of a idea that was launched from TopCon last year and was put together, I think, kind of hurriedly, but it didn't feel like it had
really
been put
didn't.
together hurriedly.
They got some good guests in my
They
opinion.
did. I really not to put down TopCon at all, because I think everybody's learning as they grow. And as we talked about with TopCon, it was exponentially better than it was the year before, because you learn every time you put it on. I think Empower Comic Con had the benefit of learning from TopCon.
Yeah.
And I think TopCon
Standing on the shoulders of giants, kind of.
I think Empower Comic Con was so well organized. I mean, as far as structure and layout, and now it had a very good venue too. The Mann Conference Center at the Kansas Expo Center is a good location. The exhibit hall, I thought, was laid out really well. The exhibitors were placed very well. The
plenty of
rooms,
space
I think the rooms were they're spacious, they're good. They utilized the rooms in the right way, so the sizes, I think, were adequate for the rooms.
And the other nice variety of options.
The other nice thing is, as opposed to TopCon that is at the Ramada end, the rooms at this one at the Expo Center are all right there together. So you're not going clear across or upstairs or downstairs or up, down, left, right. You're going, everything is right kind of like there and easy to find. And so I think that benefited from it. The sad thing about this con was it just didn't feel like there was as many people. I don't think a lot of people knew about it. I just don't think it was as well advertised as TopCon. I hope that they got the number that magic number in order to continue this from year to year, because I would love to see them do it again. And I think that now, I think TopCon gets the benefit of looking at this one.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And going, okay, this is what we can use here and what we can tweak and do better than they did, or so everybody, they're building on each other, and I like that cooperation, that cohesion. I think that works really well for our benefits.
Well, I think it works well too, having them, in October and February. They're far enough apart that because it's almost 6 months that you can. There's not a lot of competition there, and because a lot of the same staff are, working to help out and and build off of one another and bridge off of that. That'll be good. I think TopCon will be good this year because they don't have the wedding.
Well, yeah,
that ate up a lot of the hotel space. So I think that'll help re-centralize everything downtown versus upstairs and all that stuff, because they'll actually have access to the other ballrooms. But yeah, this was. I thought it was a good event. I feel like the dealers room was pretty good. They had a nice variety of vendors. They had a good layout, and it was spacious while it didn't feel cavernous.
Oh,
I mean, there was a lot of stuff to do.
It didn't feel empty at all.
I think their programming track probably could have used a little work. It didn't seem like, aside from the handful of...
It was the programming was mostly meetups.
Yeah.
Which, it's great to have a couple of those, but the meetups didn't seem very well attended either, from what I saw. That I think people tend to want to go sit in and listen to people more than occasionally meet up with other people.
I sort of got the
impression, you do that a lot on the floor just by what T-shirts and costumes and stuff.
I get the impression that because they were trying to fill 2 days, that those maybe were kind of filler.
Yeah.
And they maybe don't necessarily need those if they can broaden out the program track.
I hope so. Yeah, if they could broaden it out, I think it would be a really, really wonderful con. And what I also really like about this one is a lot of it goes to charity. It is... like your ticket price goes. Some of the ticket price went to Connie's Closet. I believe it's a local charity to help area kids age 6 through high school with clothings and things to make them feel more comfortable with themselves. So it's a really good message to have for a convention, especially in a group of people that are usually very accepting of everybody. It's a great message to try to put out there too.
Well, and many of us were social outcasts in the day before geek culture was really kind of a thing, and so I think it kind of embraces that idea of empowerment and trying to continue to step away from that geek shaming that we grew up with. That was very unfortunate for us. But it's a benefit now that a lot of people are embracing the geek culture, and it certainly helps to have a convention that then learns from what we maybe went through when we were younger and
applies it to modern uses. I think that they can continue to partner with charities like that. I think would be. If not Connie's Closet next year, maybe another similar one or something like that.
That's one of the things I've always appreciated about Galley is that they always have the silent auction or the not so silent auction. I don't remember how it worked, but every year they pick the auction. Every year they pick a new charity to get to put money towards and stuff like that. And apparently this year they more than doubled. I don't remember. I don't have the report in front of me, but they blew it out of the water from last year, and they were just flabbergasted with how much money they raised. So that was very, very cool for them. But yeah, kind of the same deal with this. I'm glad that it went over, and I hope, as you said, Glenn, that hopefully we'll be doing this again next year because it was a good time.
It really was.
And if you were in the area and you came down, we hope you enjoyed it. And if you weren't, please make sure to check their website and Facebook page and see if you can get on it for next year.
And hopefully we can be a little more involved next year as well.
Yeah.
So that'll be. We did get to host the meetups. We unfortunately didn't have anybody in our meetup group today, but we had a few nice people that came in yesterday, and we all kind of sat around and chatted about Doctor Who and our favorite things about it. It was encouraging, too, to see the little one that was the younger gal. She was 9, I think.
9 or 10.
9 or 10.
And dressed as a Solarian, I believe.
Madame
Vastra
Vastra.
specifically.
And I came in there a little late because I had to forgot I didn't get money before I went, and I needed cash. So it was encouraging to see young fan in there as well.
Yeah.
And the other girl must have been, high school age.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And if you found us through EmpowerCon, welcome to the show.
Yeah.
Yes, thanks for listening. All right, let's move on then to our news segment.
Well, this isn't Doctor Who news, but it's Torchwood news.
They're all in the family.
Eve Miles is saying goodbye to Gwen Cooper. So, recently on... Okay, so I'm trying to figure out where this originally came from.
I think it was a Twitter conversation originally.
It was a Twitter conversation.
Because that's where all the news breaks, is Twitter.
That's the world we live in now, guys.
Yeah. She said that she had been honored to work with Guy Adams, who wrote a Torchwood novel, and then the most recent, which just came out, Torchwood Audio, starring Eve Miles, More Than This, which ends the first season. So I'm wondering if that has something to do with why she's leaving. I haven't listened to it yet, so I don't know. She's honored to work with the author, but unsure about reprising the character of Gwen Cooper anymore. This isn't she described as bittersweet. In different tweets, she said somebody had tweeted her, so many people still asking, such a waste for there not to be more Torchwood. She responded, yeah, well, I've made up my mind, and Gwen Cooper is now laid to rest. Thanks, guys, for loving/hating her. Somebody else said Torchwood won't be the same without her. And she said, well, my love, I'm stopping. I'm never playing My Lady again. Thank you all. And she later tweeted, thank you, massive goodbye, GC. So what do you think of Eve not doing any more Torchwood or...
2 words. Tom Baker.
It's kind of my thought. When she needs the money, she'll come back.
I think what happens is they put the characters to rest, and that's fine. It's quite all right.
Yeah.
It's not a problem. Sometimes you got to step away from something you've been doing for the better part of 10 years in some form or another. I think that ultimately actors and actresses will decide that. I don't even think it's a money thing. I think sometimes it's the time's right to revisit this. I think that's happened with a lot of Doctor Who, especially in Big Finish. It happened with Harrison Ford in Star Wars. He was done. There was no coming back. I never believed that. I don't believe that of Eve Miles.
I'm kind of curious as to what spurred.
I think she's done for now, but I don't think there's.
Well, keep in mind too that with Torchwood, we've got. Okay, so here's the show, and it's on, and then it's gone. And then it comes over and we get Miracle Day a couple years later. And then it's gone. And then it's kind of in that weird, nebulous, are we doing more Torchwood or not? And it's never been officially, now we're done.
Yeah.
Stars would like to do more. We can't get RTD on board with
Finish.
it. So Big Finish is kind of stepping in to fill this. We've had the books. We've had Big Finish now. And as an actor on the show, to have to go through that kind of roller coaster ride of not knowing is there really going to be more or not, and then keep getting these little morsels of, oh, we're going to do this, oh, we're going to do this, and so you go and you do it. I think it's probably to that point where it's like, okay, it's time to put this to bed, and I'm going to step away from it. I guarantee you if Stars called her up tomorrow and said, okay, we've got RTD on board, we've got John Barrowman on board, we're doing another season of Torchwood, she'd be back. I mean, But you address that coming from a point that she's not an actress. She's somebody that's like just fed up with the fact that she's been left hanging on Torchwood and what they're doing. I don't think that's the case. Well, I don't think it's the case either.
Actors act. They move from job to job. They go to different things, and I don't think it's a matter of her saying that with any sort of spite to maybe try to
No. I
don't
think it's that either. I think it's just a matter. It's kind of like the Firefly group when everybody asked when we do another Firefly, and everybody's like, well, we'd all like to, and then nothing happens. they've settled. They've settled into that realization that I've got to go get another gig. I'm going to go do another job, and she's done that. She's worked in other things, but
she's not waiting around.
It's unlike Firefly, which has not reared its head other than the specter of it.
Well,
Torchwood keeps kind of coming up, going, well, we're going to give you this, we're going to give you this. So there's that, a little stab with the, I'm doing Torchwood, but it's not really Torchwood, it's pseudo-Torchwood. And so I don't think there's any spite in it at all. I don't mean to imply that. I just mean that I think that she's probably done waiting and decided I'm not going to hold my breath that it's coming back. I'm just going to go ahead and put it to bed now, and I'll be the decision maker on that.
I think it's interesting with considering that the audios are going forward, and they just released the final one of season one. I don't know if she came back and recorded anything else for season 2. So that's what makes me wonder why it's not. She's not waiting around to do more Torchwood. She's doing more Torchwood.
Exactly, and
even if it's in a different format.
I approach it from that aspect as well, because it's not like Torchwood's been around in some form or another, and Big Finish. It seems
she's done other audios
that she's just ready to do other things, and she's done with Torchwood. That's what it seems to me. She's moving on to her next job.
We don't know what happens. They may kill the character.
I don't think it's
season 2, the first season 2.
Yanto was in the first season, so
I think the other thing that we have
you can die and come back.
I think the other thing we have to do is take ourselves out of being from the fan position, because we're the only ones going, is Torchwood coming back? Oh, there's a little hope that Torchwood's coming back. There's no executive going, oh, can we get it? Oh, that's it. No, it's really based on whether the cards play right, whether it works for them financially. It's all a business, and so we're the ones that the reason the Firefly gang do we're really chomping to do another one, but the reason they do that is because the fans keep going, hey, when do we get more Firefly?
Yeah,
can we get more?
It's always spurred from questions.
It's always spurred from us. Those guys are off doing thousands of other projects in all different versions. We just saw what's her name in Deadpool. They all have other projects, and even if they have a deep down love for the series, which I genuinely believe they do because they come across that way, it's not like they're waiting around. It's us that are waiting around for it to come back. It's not them waiting around to get it done.
Yeah.
So I think it's a whole different perspective, and I think that at least lends to the fact that she's not doing it because there's been this question. Or maybe she is doing it because she keeps getting the question, when is Torchwood coming back? So it's easier to say, Gwen's done. I'm done. Maybe it's just easier to phrase it that way so she can stave off the continual questions from the fans that keep going, hey, when's Torchwood coming back? Because no executive in their right mind is going to put their the death nail in a project ever again. Especially because now we've got X-Files back on the air. Look at all this stuff that's coming. Research. Heroes came back to television. It didn't do well, but it came back.
Full House is coming back.
They are never going to say, okay, this is it. We're done and finished. There will never be this. No one's ever going to say that again.
The executive won't do that.
Exactly.
The creator might.
They might. But they're not going to do that because I think we get Twin Peaks coming back this year, too. No one's ever going to say that because now there are those opportunities to resurrect old series based on the fact that fans want them.
But even George Lucas said, okay, I'm done with Star Wars.
Yeah.
There will be no more Star Wars. Oh, and then I sold the company, and the very first announcement was, hey, we're going to make more Star Wars.
Yeah,
exactly. So.
But that's why I say
that going into that. Yeah. So even the creator is not...
And never say never again, because again, Harrison Ford and Tom Baker both have came back to roles that they said, I'm done with forever. So it's... To me, it's a non-news, and it's worth talking about. This is not aimed at you for bringing this into the news, but to me, it's not. It's not a news story. It's a humble, interesting speculation.
Would it be more of a news story if it was John Barrowman saying, "I'll never, Captain Jack is done, and good night"? And
in fan circuits, it would be a bigger deal, maybe, but it's not a bigger news story.
It'd be the same thing.
Exactly.
Because I'm
just curious.
Just maybe more people would be. I think, in all fairness to Eve Miles, I think John Barrowman is probably a more prominence in the Torchwood.
See, I feel that way too, but there are fans out there that will look at Torchwood and say it's Gwen's story.
Oh, I think.
Oh, so. Yeah, absolutely.
I think it is.
Jack just kind of happens to be the window dressing of the framework, but it's Gwen's story from top to bottom, and so maybe her coming out and saying I'm done with Gwen Cooper is a little bit more of a death nail.
No, I don't think it is because
versus Jack.
Just,
but like I said, you can go either way.
Almost do a soft reboot and bring in a new
and Big Finish
Gwen.
for as long as they have good writing and the license are going to continue to do Torchwood, whether that surrounds Gwen Cooper or not.
Oh yeah, I've actually listened to the first 2 of the season, and
Doctor Who didn't end with William Hartnell.
That's true.
That's true.
And they're not multicast recordings. They're not. It's not Jack and Ianto. It's been Jack, a couple other people that new characters, Ianto, and another character that's brand new. It's not been a full blown. The whole team's together. So
are they still skipping time? I mean, is Ianto back because he's back, or is it Ianto? I kind of don't want to know because I don't want to be spoiled.
It's set before.
Then don't ask because I don't want to know either.
Okay.
You can't stop to go. It's set. No, okay.
It's not entirely clear when it's set.
Okay.
That was diplomatic. Good job.
I'm being completely honest. It's not entirely clear when it's set. I know I have a good idea.
Wait, that's why we need a video podcast. Your gags are always sight gags.
I know. The sound effect didn't quite sell it. I just gave Keith a BB-8 thumbs up. But for those of you that are going, what was that hissing noise?
What do we have that's new? You're talking about Twitter being where everything breaks. Twitter's new motto ought to be all the news that's fit to print in 140 characters.
Until they extend the character limit. That's it in the news.
In other news, did you know that we have a Tumblr page?
Yes, we do.
I didn't. I'm lying. I'm totally...
Are you figuring out
Poor
Pinterest
Mitch
yet?
is out there going, oh, thanks.
Ignore me. I'm still hopped up on cough syrup and cold medicine. And no, but Pinterest thought I should be Keith's friend this week, which I thought was very nice of Pinterest.
I've been following you for years.
Like stalking me?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Not the bushes and...
Am I interesting?
Not really.
The closest he got was when he roomed with you.
That was intense surveillance.
It was.
You were getting suspicious, so he got a wife and backed off.
It was actually really hard because he was always at Mel's place.
You did kind of come in on the hind end of that, didn't you?
Yeah. That's it, news. We do have a Doctor Who Legacy
Tip of the week.
That's more news than tip, but the Husbands of Riversong Director's Cut came out. If you have not seen that, it's kind of like the Sonic Adventures and the kids area. You pay, I can't remember how much, $2.99. I think it's reduced at the moment, and you get 10 levels and a bunch of a character 100% drops, and you can play through a director's cut of that story. So a director's cut of the level, I guess.
Premium content.
Yeah.
Groovy.
So more content for you to consume if you're caught up on all your story levels.
Glenn, have you beaten it yet?
I haven't even downloaded it yet. I haven't.
What?
I haven't been back into Doctor Who Legacy for weeks and weeks and weeks. I need to get back on board. There was nothing except for I just got away from it. So eventually I'll come back to it, catch everything up, and play through everything.
I'm still on my hiatus, but I blame my device for not keeping up
Well,
with
that's
me.
what I was doing, was blaming mine. Then I got an iPhone 6 and can play it with no problem. I just don't do it now.
I'm used to the big screen now. I watch Mel play on hers, and it's like, no, I like big jewels and lots of room to move around. I don't think I could go to a smaller screen.
I played on my little iPhone 4 forever before I went and decided.
See, going from a small to a bigger screen, I think would no problem. But going from a big one to a small one,
I did though. I've gone back now to a small one.
My next step is I want to buy the arcade version.
My Rebel, I'm still waiting for a Windows 10 app for it.
Yeah.
So
he's got a really cool setup
now.
now.
Big screen to play that on.
He can play it great on this.
You should see Candy Crush on this thing.
My time is sucked dry by Disney Tsum Tsum still. So
Disney.
Highly addictive game. Tsum Tsum. You know, the pill looking stuffed animals. They've got a app game.
If it makes the guys at Legacy feel any better, I'm also not playing SimCity anymore, but for the same reason. My pad just doesn't. It's just gotten to the point where the updates were like, okay,
you
load.
could have got one of those
Crash.
for 2/3 more than what you bought that for.
I could have.
But then you wouldn't sound as good. He's always got to have a better mic than us.
I knew this was going to be a thing. I shouldn't have done it. I should have just stuck with the Samsung because I knew you guys were going to be like, oh, keeping up with the Joneses. Passing us by.
Not serious.
Yeah.
That was our Doctor Who
Just a
Legacy.
sexy mic. I couldn't turn it down.
It is.
Tip of the week.
Have you Instagrammed your mic yet?
I've not Instagrammed the mic. You gonna do that in my face?
Feedback.
I don't know where my phone's at. I'll use your phone.
Okay.
Let's Instagram this from your account.
Let's have you turn it right side up.
Turn it on for me. Do the thing.
There you go.
Thanks. Read your feedback.
Feedback comes from Mark.
Hi, Mark.
Mark writes, Big Finish. Where to jump in? Are you going sideways on the Instagram?
See, that way I got the whole mic in there. Corner to corner, baby.
It's been a while since I've listened to the show. Not a bad thing. Just gives me plenty to binge on. Like the new shorter format.
Ugh.
Well, this is not why I'm writing.
I'm sorry. I'm teasing everybody with the shorter format gripe. I really am. It makes me go to bed earlier, which I'm not happy about. That's the only complaint I really have.
I was after your advice on where to jump in on the Big Finish pool. To give you some background, to maybe aid your advice, my doctor is 4, but I did enjoy the War Doctor. I have heard some Big Finish audio, mainly 8 and 6, who I gained an appreciation for from what little I heard. So where should I begin? Cheers, Mark from Nottingham. It's that Mark, not Mark McMarmite.
Not McMarmite.
If you like the War Doctor, the War Doctor first box set's out, jump into that. Or season 1.
Sure, recommend something you haven't listened to yet, Keith.
I'm sure it's good.
It's got John Hurt in it.
Yeah,
can't be bad.
Season 1 of the Fourth Doctor Adventures we listened to that one.
That's a good one. That's a good start, especially if you really like the Fourth.
And it's
Doctor.
a little.
I don't think you have to really like the Fourth Doctor, but I feel like Tom, with the exception of maybe his voice changed a little bit. Sean had a little bit of a different opinion when we reviewed it, but I felt like he just kind of picked up where he left off. I didn't feel like it was. It really, when I listened to it, I felt like, oh, this is a Fourth Doctor. This is a Fourth Doctor story.
And it's a little easier to digest those than trying to tackle the big main range.
I think that at the point now that the main range is plus 200 stories now, I think that back in the day, it felt like you kind of need to go back to the beginning and start from there. I think now that it's gotten so big and there's such variety in the storytelling, and things continue, story themes continue, I think, to a point, but not on such a grand level that you would be missing anything. I think you can almost jump anywhere into the main range now and kind of pick and choose stories in there. So what are some of the really good ones that we thought were we gave high marks to? I think Flip Flop I liked a lot.
Was a really good one. Of course, there's Spare Parts.
Spare Parts is a fantastic story. So if you're wanting to go in and kind of pick and choose, that's a good way to do it too. Because I think if you get into the main line, you kind of get some of the flavor of what they're doing and how it's formatted and kind of some really good storytelling in there. And then from that point, if you pick some of those really good stories, then you can start to either go in and fill in the gaps as far as the main range goes, or then go and start picking up Series 1 of the Fourth Doctor Adventures, or even I think the first, what we've heard of, the first and part of the second series of the Eighth Doctor Adventures.
Yeah, you can jump.
If you're a fan of the Eighth Doctor, jump in and do those because they're only 6 or 8 episode long seasons.
8-episode long seasons. 4
so
of them.
it's real manageable. They're both are short. They're
hour-long
less than
format.
an hour. Yeah, each one.
You could also look at it from the. I mean, you could look at the format. And do you want to do the hour long? Are you more used to a new Who format where you're looking at an hour long, or are you looking at more of the classic Who? Or if you don't care, go kind of what we do with Keith is we try and go through with companions.
Yeah, that's one thing I was going to say is if you don't recognize a companion name, maybe shy away from it until you get some of the other ones in, because I wouldn't want you to jump in and pick up like Zagreus, say. And kind of the middle,
bad point to get in.
The middle of Charlie's arc. You don't want to do that, or even
Airman,
or
for that
Airman.
matter. Yeah,
or even to
Roof
some
of the
extent.
World would be a bad one. Or was it Roof of the World that we just did with Airman recently? Where
I think that was one. That was one of the ones we did of her recently.
where they were in Tibet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or to a lesser extent, Evelyn Smythe.
Yes, I think so.
Towards the end is when it kind of gets a little hazy on if you haven't been introduced to her before. But early stuff you can easily jump into.
But there's a lot of stuff out there that's just the Fifth Doctor and Turlough. There's a lot of
Yeah.
stuff that's just the Fifth Doctor and Nyssa. If you're already familiar with Classic Who, you pick up one of those stories, you're going to find that you'll just
You'll
feel
be
like
good to go.
you've
There's
been
a lot
dropped
of-
back into a classic Doctor Who story.
Yeah,
They're really well done and framed in such a way that you don't have to have a continuing theme.
So that's the
There's
beauty
even
of the
some
way
like
it's set up.
Yeah, even some 7 and Mel and 6 and Mel, I think, if I remember correctly.
If you haven't done Light of the World, which was the 50th anniversary
That's
story,
a really
Light at the
good one.
Light at the End. Sorry, not Light of the World. Light of the World's that church down the street. Light at the End. That's a really good one because it is a standalone story and it involves all of the doctors, all of the classic doctors that are still living. So it goes from 4th Doctor all the way up to 8th Doctor.
And
That's
there's
quite an
even some
enjoyable story.
cameos from doctors that are no longer living.
First, second, and third too. So.
But if you've got a particular pairing that you're fond of, go seek those out and see what you think.
Yeah.
That's the easy way to do it. Obviously, we've rattled off a host of ones that we've been fans of, and those are great ones to dip your toe into the water. And we've rattled off other ones.
Sadly, I can remember more of the ones that I didn't care that much for the names of those than I can the ones that I did. Twilight. What was the one with the real early one with Colin Baker with the Solarians? That was a really good one.
Blood Tide.
Blood Tide.
That was
That's a
really
good
good.
one. Blood
I just
Tide.
re-listened to that recently.
That's early on.
And Darwin.
Yeah, and that's a great Evelyn story that you don't need any before
Framing.
or after.
That's right. Yeah.
Doctor Who and the
That's-
Pirates. If you like musicals.
Doctor Who and
Yeah.
the Pirates is such a unique one. I wouldn't start there, but that's certainly one that you could once you've listened to some Big Finish.
Yeah.
If you're really new to Big Finish, that would be a good place to go. But or again, at the very least, I think Keith's right. I think you could start with the 4th Doctor Adventures and just start from
That's a
square
great
one and go
starting
there,
point.
or
Sword of
the 8th
Orion
Doctor
and-
Adventures.
Any of the early 8th Doctor ones. There's just so
Really
many.
any 8th Doctor.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Avoid the Divergent Universe until you work through your Charlie storyline.
It's a lot like where do you start with Doctor Who? Just pick and jump. You really can. I would personally, I think I would start at the beginning of an arc, whether it was the 4th Doctor Adventures, the 8th Doctor Adventures, or pick a Doctor and start with a companion and just kind of run through.
Well, if you're going to do Evelyn stories, start with the first Evelyn story.
Right.
If you're going to do Airman
Airman,
stories,
start
start with the first Airman stories because there really is a continuing theme, especially with the companions that Big Finish has introduced, because they have taken kind of ownership of those characters that they've created, and they've made sure that they've kind of orchestrated a story arc around those particular characters, and then that then peppers in Perry and the 5th Doctor, who we're already familiar with, so we kind of get you almost consider him Araman's story because Araman's learning and growing as a character throughout the story arc. So
And I'm assuming it's the same way with Hex. We haven't got enough of
we
him
haven't
yet.
got to Hex.
just started with Hex. So
we did just get Hex.
The first story.
First story.
Colditz is a good stand.
Colditz is a good
That's
one.
a really good one.
That's a really good one. Really good 7th Doctor.
Bang Bang a Boom was fun.
It was fun. That was an 8th Doctor. I was going. What was the one that was the Top Gear knockoff? But that was actually the second
I knew he
story
liked that
in the
one
8th
better
Doctor.
than he was on. I
Well,
knew it stuck in there.
I didn't say I didn't like it. In fact, I think think I came out on the side of
He came into it not liking it and left liking it.
Yeah.
No. Go back and listen to that episode. I just didn't give it a dun dun dun, and he jumped down my throat and said I didn't like it, which you do every time I don't give something a dun.
That's right. I'm the dun 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 guy. I like everything. And you like nothing.
What was a side trip we did that was based in kind of the Virgin New Adventures universe with the Seventh Doctor, Ace, and Benny.
Well, we did human or
it was
not Human Nature.
well, we did Human Nature because Benny was in
we
it.
read that. Yes.
Didn't we listen to that too?
There's no.
Oh, there was
story.
no audio,
There's no
for that
story
one.
for
You're
that.
right.
One.
No.
That's not Big Finish. You know what I'm talking.
I know what you're talking about now.
There was actually
in the
a
hotel.
couple of them. Yeah, there was actually a couple of them in the hotel.
Yeah. Well, they did the whole. I'm not crazy.
It was the crossover thing where they were the
they were at the cross knit stitch.
They were at a
convention.
convention. Yes,
and then
that's where the hotel. That's why I gave it to you. I said, yeah, I guess that's true.
They were at a hotel.
That wasn't the first thing I thought of, but okay.
The one in the hotel.
They were in a convention center.
No, it was a hotel because they went up many floors and fire escapes and.
Been any big convention centers, have you?
No.
Yeah, I do think they talked about rooms.
There was a hotel.
Hotel rooms and.
They laid out the whole plot in a hotel room before they went out to fight the bad guys.
I guess that's true. I'll give you that.
And
one.
Ace went deaf.
I can't for the life of me remember. So
I cannot remember the name of it.
Trying to look
never
now.
mind that one, Mark.
It was a good one.
No, that was the one you didn't like.
Oh, was that the one I didn't like? Oh, you're right. That's the one I didn't like.
How do you remember it was in a hotel? You can't remember you didn't like it.
I'm new here.
And on a lot of drugs.
And on a lot of drugs right now.
I'm trying to pull it up, but my computer's going.
Legal prescribed.
I suppose we should.
Well, it just occurred to me we didn't talk about that at the beginning of the podcast.
I've been sick this week, so before anybody goes, oh.
No wonder he's more jovial this week. He's getting the hard stuff.
Capital N,
So,
little
there's
Y,
that.
big Q.
There is that.
The NyQuil is talking to me.
All right. Well, should we move on to our review?
Thanks, Mark. Go check out some Big Finish.
Yeah. The Legends.
Unhelpful as usual.
The sound you're now hearing is me tearing pages out of the Traveling the Vortex recommendation guide. Today is the day I should have died. Instead, I was reborn by my hero, a man called the Doctor. Is that where you're going?
No.
No. Well, I'll shut up then.
I'm trying to pull up that audio still.
Oh, you're still on that.
All right. The Legends of Ashilda. Ashilda, a young Viking girl, died helping the Doctor and Clara to save the village she loved. And for her heroism, the Doctor used alien technology to bring her back to life. Ashilda is now immortal, the woman who lived. Since that day, Ashilda has kept journals to chronicle her extraordinary life. The Legends of Ashilda is a glimpse of some of those stories, the terrors she has faced, the battles she has won, and the treasures she has found. These are the tales of a woman who lived longer than she should have ever lived, and lost more than she can even remember.
I like this, but I'm not going to dun dun
I'm
dun.
going to give...
It's a mild dun-dun-dun. I'll go that.
We got to have 4 duns, because there's 4 stories.
Oh, well.
You have to dun 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 at the beginning of every one.
The first
Done.
one.
Done. No, wait. Done. 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 That's my review.
So it's the Westminster Chimes. I'll go with that. We're grandfather clocking on the Vortex.
I think there are stories in this that I enjoyed better than others.
I think so too.
But when I come to this as a whole, to look at this as a whole, I quite enjoyed it. And the reason I did is because I appreciate the idea that this book was doing. And I think in my short synopsis on Goodreads, or my short review on Goodreads, I think I pointed out that what I liked about this is the first 2 stories really talk about Ashilda as a legend.
It's the adventurer.
And as an adventurer. And the second two stories are really delve into Ashilda as a character. It goes into her character. And
that's a really good point.
And so I like how the book, in fact, it's divided very well in the sense that the first story is sort of you're not quite sure how much it's been embellished. And I kind of like the aspect that it takes place so long ago. And it's almost like legend is the best word for this particular story because of the fact that legends throughout the years, the older that they get, the more fantastic or embellished or wonderful or over exaggerated they can become. And so I think that who wrote this one? I want to give
the first one is James Goss.
James Goss, I think, took this idea of a story that has been passed down and passed down and passed down and passed down, and you're not quite sure what's true and what's not. And I really like it from the aspect that it's a story within a story within a story as well, because you're not meant to know that Ashilda is the actual woman that married this king that is forcing her to entertain him and keep her entertained, because this king particularly, every time he gets bored with a wife, he has them killed or he kills them himself. And so she's thrust into a situation where she has to continually entertain the king because we feel like that if she doesn't, her life is in danger. And so she goes in and tells these stories about the times of ancient Persia and the Middle East, and it involves Sinbad the sailor, and the stories get that real Sinbad treatment that I think we get from the films and the books.
No, it's the first one.
That's still the first one?
Yeah.
That we get from the films and the books.
The second one is the pirates.
And so the wonderful storytelling in it is that very swashbuckling adventurer. And I think that
oh, you're okay. Yeah.
Each time that they kind of weave in and out of each story, I think is just really kind of done well in the legend and the adventure style. And it did take me a little while, this particular story, to get used to that storytelling style.
Yeah, it took me a
while. But
once
I got into it, I really quite enjoyed the story.
I think they did a really good job in the introduction, too, of setting you up for what to expect in the book. The first two have come to you as a reader through a third party, and then the last two are straight from her journal. So I think that's a clever way that they prepare you for it. And it felt slightly ironic that, at least when I was reading this, we were preparing for the crusade. This first story, because it felt very the Middle Eastern setting and all these kind of, I don't know, just the trappings felt very similar to me. Maybe it's just me.
I think
it's mostly just a Middle Eastern setting.
Well, that ultimately is. This would have been more.
This would have been longer, much longer.
Well, you equate this to. This would be Arabian Nights type storytelling, which equates to like Arthurian legend in the UK or in the English area. I think that the events in this book, had they actually been true, or what would have been true of this book, is actually set after Norse time, when the Norse gods were the mythos, obviously, because she's come from that. But much prior to the Crusades and that, so it would have been a time before that.
It's closer to Aladdin.
It would have been, it would have been ancient Persia. It probably would have been more at the time that the what am I looking for? The Spartans and the even prior the Roman Empire expanding. So you would have found that kind of era. But the stories are embellished so much that you wonder if it's set later and told with embellishments from long ago.
Yeah. Well, and there are. It seems to me like the embellishments are early on, but not very big, and then later on
they get more and more grand.
But I believe them more the bigger they get. I fully believe that this told us. I guess it wouldn't necessarily be Egyptian, but whatever. Oh, It was Egyptian in this, right? Once they got to the city of Brass, weren't they talking about Egyptian gods coming down and building the pyramids?
Would have been proud of that.
Yeah. So I fully believe that those were aliens coming down, and pretty much the way they presented it in this is that's why we have Egyptian gods. And that all of that in the city of Brass and everything happened the way it did. I don't know, just the grander it got, the more I got sucked into it, and the more I believed it.
I kind of agree with you, because I was a little torn initially when it was set up as the Sherazade telling the tale. I was like, oh, okay, well, obviously Ashildr is Sherazade. That makes sense, because she's been around forever, and she's going to know all these stories. Even though it's however much later than the Norse time frame that we start off with her. But I wasn't wowed by it, and I didn't like the storytelling. And it really was kind of the fact that, as you point out, that as a legend becomes legendary, as it steeps into legend and becomes what it is, that you don't know where you stand with it. That was kind of the one saving grace that I had going into this story, was that it just didn't work for me, but I kind of kept putting it into that, well, we don't honestly know, so I'm going to allow them the benefit of the doubt to tell me the story the way that they're going to do it. And so then as it went on, there were parts of it that I was very frustrated with, like the City of Glass, or Brass, where it's like, so are these aliens or what? Because you didn't really,
tell me for sure.
You didn't tell me for sure. I kind of want that, you know me, I want that science. Answer. I want that science in my Doctor Who. I don't want it to be mystical. But you're just towing the line of whether or not it is or it isn't.
And the way it's presented is, it also comes across as we have to extrapolate because she's telling the story to somebody who wouldn't believe it if it was actually aliens.
Right. Yeah, I mean, she has to, you have to remember the audience. She's not telling me the story. She's telling the king the story. Yeah, so exactly. You've got to, dumb it down or however you want to look at it. But then there were other elements that was like, okay, wait, now so Sinbad showed up?
Well, that was early on. That was the part I had the hardest time swallowing.
Yeah.
Just because he is a true fictional character, isn't he? He's not real.
Yeah.
So that's part of why I was like, well, okay, so...
We're kind of blending the... And you were talking about...
on the heels of Robin Hood.
The Crusades, but then... You're talking about with the Crusades preparing for it, and of course all I'm flashing back to is when Patrick Troughton is going to show up in this story.
Well, yeah, there was a little bit of that of that Sinbad story.
Yeah, I mean, it felt very much like that Sinbad story. So I kind of went along with it, but it was just, I wasn't sure I was happy with it until it was over. And then I kind of just felt like, okay, I'm glad that one's done with, and I can move on to the rest of the book. It wasn't until I'd sat on it for a while that I kind of came back and went, okay, yeah, that was actually kind of cool. That they told the story in the way that they did. And you're right, that opening was saying, this has been audio recorded from somebody who told us the story, that this is how it went down. There's enough give and take there that's like, okay, yeah, I'm all right with it. I don't know, when I was reading it, I didn't like it. It really went against what I was expecting or thinking was going to make a good Who story.
Well, that's the thing, is these aren't Who stories, too. So that's one of the things I liked about the entire book is, through much of it, Ashildr is morally ambiguous and questionable.
Yeah, me too.
I was reading this, and my mother-in-law asked about the book, and I kind of tried to explain to her, because she hasn't watched the show, and she said, "Is a good character then?" I was like, well, maybe not necessarily, but that makes her interesting.
She's a good character. She may not be a good guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Or a good girl.
Yeah, she meant it as a good guy.
Let's go ahead and talk about the next story then in mind.
The Fortunate Isles.
Another legend, in my opinion. This one, though, to me, felt a little more in line with a Doctor Who story.
It really did.
Just in the sense of the trappings and how... It's really kind of it's misleading because it feels like another Earthbound Ashildr story in the sense that you sort of feel like it's based in reality. And it's not until it starts to get a little fantastical and we have what we think is alien intervention and find out is actually future intervention. I kind of like that, but I like how as you get to the island and they start finding the gold, and they start finding the things that were sort of promised to them by this guy that they picked up along the way. That it's sort of just grander and grander and grander and more fascinating and more obscure and just fantastical. And I actually, when we got to the resolution of this, we find out, first of all, this guy that we've picked up is actually part of this ploy to draw people to this island in order to be a spectator sport for future observers. And it really turns into sort of a Hunger Games / Survivor element to it, and but with a life or death situation. And it comes across as I sort of you want to put. You probably want to put a label on these people that have come to the future that, wow, how brutal and just really ripe with evil are these people until it's kind of explained that they really sort of choose situations in history anyway that maybe didn't turn out favorable for the participants anyway. And so they're picking and choosing these events in order to, because they don't survive anyway in history. So let's, kind of make it interesting and use it to our own means and our own entertainment. And so you never really kind of like them or agree with them, but it almost soft sells the idea of what
they're not as horrific as it
they're
appears.
Not as horrific. It kind of tames them a little bit. Not enough for you not to still dislike what they're doing, but I thought it was
opens
really
that door of moral ambiguity.
Yeah,
now you're
absolutely.
Like, okay, maybe.
Exactly. That's exactly that hits the nail on the head. And but I really enjoy Ashildr in this one because she really has kind of this air about her of this sense of adventure. I mean, she stows away on this ship in order to make it to her next, adventure or port or call or wherever she's going. In fact, she's trying to sell what she had just procured before, and ends up being sidetracked for this adventure, really. And but she develops a good relationship with the I don't remember what he was. It's kind of the second mate to the captain. She doesn't take any crud from the captain when he kind of dishes it to her. And the captain, I think, at one point, until a certain point in the story, kind of builds a respectful relationship with her.
They've got a pretty good relationship.
And so the relationship building and the characters in this are really, really fleshed out, and it feels like they connect really well.
Yeah.
And so it makes it even more incredible when they're placed in a situation where they then have to be pitted against each other. And it really takes that turn. And I thought that was an enjoyable way to tell a piece of her story in such a different contrast to what we got first, and then in different contrast to what we get later in the book when the tone of the stories end up changing. Yeah. So I really like that aspect of it. And it seemed like more of a suspense story for me, especially the whole mystery of the island and then the running from the dog creatures that were chasing them, trying to thwart the different booby traps that were set out along the island, the mutiny in the crew, the guys that, suddenly decide, well, we're just going to get back. They didn't show up, so we're just going to get back to the ship, and then that being their demise and fighting each other for it.
You kind of grow to like all the pirates, and then they revert to their
their human nature, is what they do.
They remind you we're pirates.
Yeah, they revert to stereotypes.
No. We've always been this way. You just kind of liked us, even though it's kind of like Captain Jack.
Yeah. Even more so, though, that they revert to a base human nature of greed and survival and all that kind of stuff, too. So the pirate code's even at one point kind of thrown out,
Yeah.
More like guidelines.
Yeah.
This was another one that... So it starts off, and she's on the ship, and she's stowing away. She's trying to get to Seville. Okay.
Seville.
5 days later, we're still at sea, and she's going, uh-oh. And at that point,
Seville.
She's like, well, what about, maybe it's the such and such islands, or maybe, but why would any Spanish ship go there? And I'm thinking, you're going to the New World, girl. I knew right there. So that, we're in a race, we're looking for this thing. And then we come across the ship, and we get to the island. And my first thought was, it's kind of feels like another Sinbad story. We're just okay. So I'm still in that.
See, it felt more like Treasure Island to me.
Yeah, when they get to the island, it does.
Exactly.
Because I just got out of the mindset of, well, that story's over with Sherazade, and now it's like, okay, I'm back in it again. But then once they get to the island, it does. The tone changed for me, and it went to this Treasure Island and this big high adventure. And I found myself really enjoying it. I didn't expect to, but I really enjoyed that element of it.
And then it changes tone again.
And then it changed tone again, and I got angry because it was like, no, I liked what was going on. Why would you? And then I admonished myself for being angry because, well, this is the aliens. This is what you wanted out of the first story. You wanted the concrete proof that there was something else going on. And okay, yeah, all right. So I switched mental gears and was like, okay, cool, and went through the third half of it, or the third part. And this story is kind of what helped soft sell me back on the first one.
Okay.
Because of, as you said, it gets more and more grand, and as I got used to that, then it was like, okay, I kind of see what they were doing with, this is the first story done better in my mind.
I would agree.
Just the telling of the tale was a little.
Question is though, was that intentional, or were these authors turned loose with these stories, or with the idea of writing anthology pieces? Explaining the different lives and adventures of
just said,
Ashildr.
okay, here you go.
Yeah, I kind of feel that way.
And
I think
really
it's almost a happy accident that the first two end up this way, and the last two end up this way.
I think that comes down to a little bit of
In fact, I think that's why the explainer is added into the beginning. Yeah.
I'm sure it kind of... obviously, they had some notes.
Yeah, and obviously Justin Richards had some in the last story to at least had information from the first three to tie into
it's
the
obvious
story.
that he was the outline
editor-in-chief or whatever of this particular book. And obviously leave it to himself to write the anchor story because that's where the emotional meat is. But we'll get there.
It feels like the wrap-up story more than the emotional meat. I think the story before that, the next one...
Yeah. That's
the triple knife.
The heavy.
Oh, yeah, the triple knife is the heavy. Which is the last one that he wrote?
That was the one with the thing
ghosts
in the forest that they were trying to get. The crashed... Well, spoilers. The crashed spaceship that we eventually get to the
I've completely
root of the
rearranged
problem.
this whole book in my head.
The emotional heavy is... let's move on. I think that I thought this was going to be my least favorite of the stories in this when I first started reading it because I kind of felt...
It took me a while to get used to the new format again.
I sort of felt the road we were traversing, knowing that Ashildr from the series, knowing that Ashildr had lost her children.
See, and I didn't think they'd give us that actual story.
And what she lost them to. And so I kept thinking, okay, I know what's coming. We've just got to build to it. And so I was not enjoying the read because I sort of felt, okay, here we go. I'm going to learn what happened here. And it wasn't until I was probably about a third of the way through it, or it's more like two-thirds of the way through it, because you kind of get the impression that the kids are safe, and then you're questioning, well, I know what happens. Where are we going with this? How is this going to get there? And when the three doctors end up showing up, the scientists show up, and I love the explanation for the masks, because I don't know if you guys know, during the time of the Black Plague, you see these long crow-nose masks.
Yeah.
Those are actually masks that were worn in those days, and it was believed, it was basically a primitive form of a gas mask. It was believed that by using that crow's nose, that it would filter the bubonic plague virus and would not allow it to enter the respiratory system of the person that was wearing it. And I love that the idea that comes from the fact that this species actually had, whether it be a face mask helmet or that was actually a derivative of their face. I love that that's incorporated into this story as to kind of give a little more of an alien aspect to it.
Why they had the face
exactly.
they did. Yeah.
But when these three scientists show up and we have this real character struggle within Ashildr, and we get that character that we got in The Girl Who Lived, where she's wanting to go out and adventure. She's lived her time on Earth. She wants something more than the family and because she knows it's something that she can never have because it's such a drop in the bucket in her life. And for her to go through that and go through those emotions and finally realizing that her children would die alone, and it's the mother's voice there that comforts you and softens you, or family or somebody that reassures you and that they need that, and that's what turns her back. That was just, when I got to that part, I was like, oh, that made all of the trial and trauma and depression in this story make this story worth it and make it work for me.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. It's one of those that, again, you set it up and you tell me the story, that this is the story we're going to tell. And there's a part of my brain that goes, well, I already know how that comes out. Why do I want to slog through it? It's going to be depressing. I don't want to read that. I don't want to read that. But you read through it and you get wrapped up in it and you get so emotionally connected to what's happening, even though it's Titanic. The boat's going to sink. And you still are right there with it all the way up to the bit. And the introduction of the doctors, I thought I agree with you, it was done really well. I liked the fact that there was this alien stuff that was going on and that they were actively searching for cures and, well,
kind of
searching for cures.
Well, they were, but for their own kind.
But
yeah.
And to get through all this, and then to get to the heartbreak of when she gets brought in and detained and tortured for supposedly being the one to release it all.
And then the realization later that they probably actually did with Rose, the rats, probably did bring the plague to London.
That's the tragic thing I think of this most is the fact that she caused the bubonic plague.
Yeah.
And, I mean, that's heavily presumed in this story.
Yeah, it's never outright said, but it's assumed.
And I thought it was presumed fairly early. It was like, oh, look, Mom, can I keep the rat? It's like, what are you doing with a rat?
It's almost...
Well, we kind of get a confirmation later, too.
Yeah, that's just it.
That's when I realized is the later
it's almost alluded to early on, and it's almost confirmed later on.
Yeah.
Or validated later on.
But so to go through all that and then go rushing home and find the kids really... Yeah, they weren't better.
Yeah.
They didn't make it. And to kind of have her break to that point of, okay, fine, now I'm going to leave, and I will go with the aliens, and I will go travel, and I will get to do the thing, and still not be able to do it. That was the
yeah.
That was the knife, and it justified the book and the storytelling and getting me into that tale. Because there's sometimes when it's like, well, we're going to tell this story. I was like, okay, cool, but I mean, Star Wars is a good example of Rogue One, since this is set with the rebel spies who stole the Death Star plans. Well, I know at least one of them is going to make it out of this. Fundamentally,
hopefully they'll do it cleverly so we don't know which one.
Yeah, fundamentally, one of them is going to survive this, but maybe not. I don't know. But, so there's a part of me that's kind of apprehensive about that telling of the story, but I'm still excited to hear a story that I don't necessarily, I don't know.
You may know the resolution, but
I know the resolution, but I know the who's of the why first. So you have to be really careful when you're setting up that kind of thing. And so going into it was like, I don't know. But it was done so well that coming out of it, I was like, yeah, this was really well done.
And it's a really great story, more so than anything else in the book, to help bridge that gap between the two actual televised stories.
Yeah.
Anybody who had issues with the stark changes between the two characters that we get between Ashilda and me, this helps smooth any of that over.
I think so, too.
And what's interesting...
I would agree. I came to this conclusion that the reason why she is the way she is in the woman who lived, and the reason she is so... In fact, this gives more weight to her passion to do whatever to get off the planet.
Yeah, it really does. Especially since she was so close to getting that chance and then having it ripped away from her. What I found interesting is, technically, these two stories, the last one and this one, are out of order. Did you guys notice that?
I didn't notice that.
This one's set 1348, and according to the story in the previous one, 1485. So in the pirate story, she's already lost her children. I just found that interesting. In hindsight,
I think they flip-flopped them because of the mood.
yeah, I think so too.
You certainly couldn't put this third story where
You couldn't put that second.
it happens chronologically.
I just
Does,
really
does
like
that
this
work
story.
for me?
Just it's wibbly wobbly, timey wimey, Sean.
Well, no, but it's
Her character actions don't change anything, and
It
who
really
knows
doesn't.
if that's truly why she was acting the way she did in the story. I mean, that's also a legend one to some extent, not as great as the first one. But
I would agree with Keith. I don't think it changes the nature of her character.
It's been over 100 years at that point too. So,
But if you're going to use the three knives, is it the three knives? If you're going to use that one to bridge the gap in her character to becoming me,
It doesn't matter because they both take place between.
Mm-hmm.
They're flip flopped.
all of these take place in between.
All of them still take place in between. So, and in fact, in the pirate story, she's more disconnected.
She's more like me actually because she's being the thief.
Agreed.
okay, yeah, then yes, it does
In the
work.
very beginning.
Okay,
It does work.
that's what I was concerned about, is if it would. But yeah, no, I agree. You couldn't have the third story second. Doesn't work there.
I just came down to really, really liking this story. I did have trouble getting into the new format, but once they got to London, I just devoured the rest of this.
It's exhausting, though.
It's exhausting,
so
but
emotionally draining.
It's emotionally draining, but to some extent, because I know how it's going, I know what has to happen. It's somewhat emotionally satisfying.
Well, it doesn't make it bad. And in fact, I agree. The emotional satisfaction is true because of my trepidation going into it, knowing what I know of it, and satisfactorily explaining that situation and building a story around that, still making it interesting.
Do we get something mentioned on TV and then they do it in a story in a book, and it's nowhere near as good as what you could have imagined? And this is way better than I could have imagined. And and part of my enjoyment, I think, of it is I went into this book thinking, well, they're not going to do that. I don't think they'd go that far. And they went that far, and they did even better than I could ever thought. So I think that's part of why I enjoyed it so much, is they pushed that boundary that I didn't expect them to push.
It certainly helps, too, that The Girl That Lived kind of skirts the topic. It doesn't directly address it, but skirts it with clever references and wordplay.
Yeah.
And then the last story.
Okay, the last story I enjoyed, but I was slightly disappointed with because I thought it was going one direction. It didn't go there. I thought we were going to meet the lion, and I thought that's what was going to be in the woods, was her lion friend that promised to get her out. I thought that's where we were headed with that last story.
I didn't either, but way to set up your expectations there, Keith.
Well, 1600 had come and gone. I knew that the woman who lived was set in the 1600s. So I thought, that's what we're going with this. That being said, I still enjoyed the story. It just was a little less because of my set expectations going in.
I'm glad I didn't think of that, because I would have really come down on it harder than...
I liked it.
I
think I liked it least of all of them.
Really?
And because...
I'd tie it for second.
To me, the story kind of meanders.
It does.
Until the end. And there's nothing that really grips you, because we're steeped in this mystery of what this is.
These
and
ghosts.
The multiple attempts to try to penetrate the barrier in order to get further in to find out what's at the center of this. So ultimately, to me, while I did not expect what was there, when I got there, I was not surprised by it.
I would agree with that.
So so the story meanders all the way up to the point that there's this mystery in this village, and they don't go there, and it meanders so much that I kept wanting, let's just get there. Let's just get past these obstacles. And so the obstacles to me then didn't get any more. The author ramps them up a bit. Don't get me wrong, but it never ever got to a point where I didn't think I would, or I thought I would walk away, no matter what would present.
Well, and you have to know that coming forth post death of children, that's going to be.
You got to
an
lift
obstacle.
the mood a little bit.
You know, that's what she's going to come up against. She's going to have to face those ghosts literally.
Right.
And so when we don't get to it, and we don't get to it, we don't get to it, oh, come on.
Because you know what her ultimate
let's hurry
obstacle
up and
is
get to
going
the ghost. Unless it was the doctor. That's the only other thing that would have been.
When Odin showed up, I thought it was going to be the doctor.
I thought so too. And I was a little surprised it was Odin.
A little bit that it was going to be the doctor.
In fact, I felt Odin was kind of a.
Had it been the doctor, I think that would have worked better for me because
I agree.
She had already.
It would have shown more of her anger towards him that we see in The Woman Who Lived.
I think she had already come to terms with the Odin character.
Yeah.
So why is that the ultimate obstacle to face again when you faced it with death?
Yeah.
It just...
yeah.
I mean, she faced the real Odin.
Yeah.
So the ghost of Odin is not in my mind, not a big deal. The ghost of her dead children, I get that. But the ghost of the doctor, the idea that this is the force that's stopping you from leaving, that's the culmination of the journey, which is why the woman who died...
The Woman Who Lived.
Woman Who Lived. Girl Who Died. Woman Who Lived. Is so flipped hardcore from The Girl Who Lived. And this book actually made me appreciate that second television story a little bit more.
Yeah. And I liked it the first time, but you were really hard on it.
I was really hard on it compared to the tonal shift. And, this explains a little bit of it. But I think having the doctor there would have been seminal to tying it in a little better with that, as opposed to Odin, which I felt was kind of just a hollow, I don't want to say an empty threat, but it felt like an empty threat.
Well, again, she'd already overcome that obstacle with
she
death.
Knew he was even a false Odin at that point, too.
Yeah, exactly.
It didn't mean anything.
The veil was lifted, and so there's there's very little mystery left. There's no... The danger doesn't seem as great once the doctor lifts the veil on what this really is, and it just I was dissatisfied with that. I wasn't dissatisfied with the resolution of this either. It just again when we got there, I didn't expect it, but I was not surprised by it. So then it felt tropish to me.
It felt flat,
and so it was flat and. The satisfaction of the story is that she conquers her fears, that she helps the village in the long run, but the journey to the accomplishment was not enough to satisfy me for the story overall. So.
And I wonder how much of that is placement. If this story is set earlier in the book, before the children die. Maybe that's just it. It's coming off of the emotion. I mean, it doesn't work then, but if it had happened and you didn't have the emotional heavy of the third story, and this one was set before it, then maybe it wouldn't have been quite as big of a... Because I was expecting a big, rousing finale.
Yes, yeah.
And I didn't get it. It's not that it's a bad story. It's an okay little story, and it's probably the weakest thing that Justin Richards has ever written, which kind of surprised me because I like Justin Richards so much. Excuse me, but it just and kind of like I'm so glad I didn't think of that. With
it's
man, I would have been hating.
I'm glad I didn't get set up by that, or I would have been really disappointed
because it would have been easily. She solved the issue for the village. She wouldn't have to go back to the village, and they could go on forward. And I don't know.
Yeah, but
I think that
then once I finished it, I thought, oh, maybe that's a story for volume 2.
See, I disagree. I don't think I want to see that because the nice thing about this anthology is it's not a 4-part anthology; it's a 6-part anthology.
It's true.
With each story being vastly different. And by saying that, I frame that around the girl who died and the woman who lived becomes the fifth and sixth parts of this story. And so, first and sixth parts of this story. And so,
if they do a volume 2, I want to see from the
4
woman who
fresh
lived,
new stories
from the woman who lived to face the raven.
Absolutely,
Show me her setting up the trap.
That would be great.
Yeah.
I don't want to see her set up traps.
Well,
I don't want the stories to bridge. I want the stories to develop character. I don't want the stories to get from point A to point B narratively. I don't want that. And so I'm glad that this ended up being her lion friend. I'm okay with a nod at the end, but I don't want it to be the crux of the story.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I came down on I couldn't decide, honestly, because we talked a little bit after the finale.
Hellbent?
Yeah. Is it Hellbent or Heaven Sent?
Hellbent.
That she shows back up in. Whichever the finale was. My brain. That, and so she goes off and, she's got Clara in a TARDIS and zooming around, blah, blah, blah. And so we talked just a little bit about, do we want to see more Shielder? And I was torn because part of me was like, yeah, I think that'd be kind of cool. I don't want a whole series. I don't want to, but a Big Finish or a book or something like that. Now that I've had this, I don't know that I want more. I think it was just enough. I don't even know that I want a volume 2. I think it was just enough to kind of fill in some of the gaps for me. And give me a little bit broader of a paintbrush. And it's like, yeah, okay, I think I'm good. If they do a volume 2, I'd be curious to read it, especially if it is set between the woman who lived and Face the Raven. I agree with Glenn. I don't necessarily want it to explicitly tie in. Connect. I want it to be the way this one is, where it's just kind of, here's some loose stories that happened in the in-between time that maybe will make me like Face the Raven more.
Yeah. Character building, yeah.
Because I really didn't like that one either. So as long as they do it that way, maybe I'd be okay with it. But at the same time, I think I'm good.
I'm with you. But I think it's more of it's not that I don't want more. It's now I know I don't need more.
Yeah, that's a better way of putting it. Yeah.
Cool.
I'm just glad it wasn't Story of Martha.
It definitely was not Story of Martha, and I was concerned going into it.
I'm glad you brought that up because this is Story of Martha done right.
Yes, exactly.
This is Story of Martha done right. What are we coming up on the schedule, Sean?
Well, this was the first of the Traveling the Vortex book club, Goodreads book club selections for this year, which we all read in January.
I've got a review from the Goodreads book club.
Let's do that.
Holly wrote, overall, I enjoyed the book. A couple of the stories were better than others, but it did give me a little more insight into why Ashila was acting the way she was when she met the Doctor at the tail end of Series 9. Ben also writes, it was okay, but not great. It's divided into 4 parts. I wasn't impressed with the first part, to be honest. It wasn't bad. It just wasn't that good. The other parts got better, though. By the end, I was enjoying it enough to leave it a decent review. And those are pretty much most of the reviews, other than Glenn's and Sean saying I finished it. We'll listen to find out.
That's the lazy man's way to review. At least I give him a taste of what I was thinking.
Well, now that we've talked about it, I'll go back because I didn't want to tip my hand.
I believe those threads are left open. So if you're still reading that or you plan to read that in the future, we'd like to hear more from you.
In fact, Amanda posted end of the month and said that she got to a late start and was still working on it.
So please continue to add those, and we'll try to revisit that, and maybe add some more reviews to that as well.
And a reminder that the Goodreads Book Club of February, say it for me because I can't pronounce it.
I think it's the Drostan's Curse.
The Drostan's Curse.
Yeah, or Drostan's. Drostan's, I believe.
Which we will be reviewing. That's the February book, so you have through the end of this month to read it, and we will be reviewing that on the podcast in March. And that's the way we're going to incorporate some of the Goodreads stuff for this year. So hopefully you enjoyed that, and this will help tie into that a little bit better.
Spoilers. I liked it.
I'm about almost at the halfway point. Have you started it?
I haven't started.
You haven't started yet? You got time.
I plowed through it. It was captivating.
When I start reading a book, I tend to dive into it, so I want to make sure I'm closer to the review date.
Well, next week for Friday Night Who, we're going to do The Girl in the Fireplace. And then, because we've already reviewed that story, we're going to do some more books. We're going to do our review of the Lethbridge Stewart short, The Dogs of War, and our spoiler-filled book review, Lethbridge Stewart, Mutually Assured Domination, by Nick Walters. So we'll be talking that. And we've kind of reviewed the book a little bit in the pre-spoiler realm since we got the advanced copies, but now that it's out and everybody should have had a chance to read it, we're really going to dive into it. We're also going to do a catch-up of the Titan comics with the 10th Doctor, which I believe we left off on issue 10, so we'll do 11 through 15, which should finish out season 1, is what they're calling it on the Titan front. So you can be prepared for some more literary work. And I was a little late posting the schedule, so I'm going to go a little bit further out. We are going to be watching the Fifth Doctor Peter Davison story. Is it Frontios? Is that how it's pronounced? This is one I've never seen, so it's completely new to me. On the first weekend of March for Friday Night
It's been a long time since I've seen it, so I'll be coming at it pretty fresh.
Then that we'll have our review, which we've never reviewed that one on the show, so we'll be reviewing Frontios. And unfortunately, this may be a tough one for people to find because apparently it's also slipped into moratorium and it's not available.
At least on DVD. It is
at least on DVD.
iTunes.
It is still available on iTunes. Yes.
So there is that, and then we'll do The Hand of Fear the week after that for Friday Night Who, which will set up the next book club review. So you've got, I guess, 2 weeks for the Jostin's Curse by A.L. Kennedy. And I suppose we'll go one more out. After that, we're going to do The Day of the Doctor, because we always love doing Day of the Doctor.
I finally own that on Blu-ray, so
Yeah.
you can actually watch it on Blu-ray.
But then the reason we're doing Day of the Doctor is because our Traveling the Vortex for that week, number 273, is Beyond the Doctor, John Hurt, which we will be watching 1984, is what we've decided for that one. So if you, have that one.
I checked, he's in that.
Is he in it a lot?
He's in it a lot.
Is he in it more than Sylvester McCoy was in Dracula?
That's like saying there's more water in that fish tank than there is in a little tiny droplet of water.
We have it on good authority that there is some pretty massive John Hurt in 1984. And we decided, this is one that we've none of the three of us have seen this one, right?
No, I've not. That's why I wanted to do this. I've read the book, but I've never seen the film. I've meant to watch the film for years.
So it'll be new to all three of us. But
have you read the book?
I've not read the book.
I might try to pick up the book and read it before.
I might try to, too.
It's a challenge.
If
you're reading other
wanted
things, put everything else down. It's a challenge. It really is. Now,
maybe I'll read it after I watch the movie. That's how I tend to do things.
Yeah, I'm a little trepidatious about the movie. I want to see it, and I want to see John Hurt's performance in it. But knowing what I know of the book, I don't know how they're going to do it. I really have no idea how it was translated into a film. It's a challenge to read. It really is. I'll elaborate a little bit more without spoiling the book, although the movie should do that. But I'll elaborate a little bit more when we review 1984. Okay.
So that'll be our Beyond the Doctor, and then wrapping things up in March is Terror of the Vervoids for Friday Night Who on the 25th. And then we'll be doing Big Finish number 68, Catch 1782. And then we'll be finishing off the Titan Comics 12th Doctor Series 1 with 11 through 15 for that podcast. And that's kind of as far out as we've gotten.
12?
12.
Are we done with 11?
Yes.
We did finish
for season 1.
We did finish, because he was the first one out, so we did get through him. And then I think we'll actually be done with the Titan
Season 1
issues,
we'll
which will be kind of nice.
Series 2. Yeah.
And we'll be ready to move into Season 2.
And hopefully eventually 8th Doctor.
The 8th and 9th Doctor miniseries. We did the
9th.
9th
is done. Yeah.
8th Doctor miniseries.
Now we're just waiting
done,
for 9th
and
Doctor.
The 4th Doctor one should be starting at that point.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know. We'll let you know more as we get there. So
we often keep you informed, listener.
We will try to. So that is that as far as scheduling goes.
Well, if you want to support this podcast, be sure to be a Patreon's supporter and subscriber. That does help us tremendously. If you're already a supporter, we thank you. And if you're not a supporter yet, please consider joining Patreon and supporting our podcast, because every bit of money that you pledge to us goes straight back into this show. And we still haven't scheduled our pledge show. We need to do that.
We should do that. We'll put that in the next programming block.
If Patreon's not your pleasure, and you prefer to get just a little bit more than just a good podcast out of your support, and you like to buy products from either Entertainment Earth or Amazon.com, please consider going to the links on our website. A minor portion of those proceeds do come back to this show and help us also support it. You can find us on the various forms of social media, which include
Facebook, Traveling the Vortex, Twitter @TravelVortex. We are on the Goodreads Book Club, of course. We are on Tumblr and Google Plus.
Are we on Pinterest?
Do we have a Pinterest, Glenn?
No, we don't have a Pinterest. We have an Instagram.
We have an Instagram.
We do have an Instagram and a Periscope and a.
Yeah, if you have Twitter, you pretty much have a Periscope. They're joined now. So,
are they?
Yeah, for the most part. I think that's going to do it for this week. Until next week, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing ya.
Thanks for listening.
And thanks for listening. I was late.
It's the drugs.
It's the drugs.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.